This is one of the things that I really love about what we're doing right now because it's forcing me to research what's going on in my own damn body.
I know.
Welcome to Brain Fog Banter, where two women in the messy middle of perimenopause try to make sense of what's happening as it's happening.
We're not doctors. We're just curious, unfiltered, and figuring it out right alongside you.
Every other episode, we bring in experts to help explain the stuff our bodies never warned us about.
And the rest of the time, we're swapping stories with each other and asking way too many personal questions. So let's stumble through it together. This is Brain Fog Banter.
Because I definitely have been very comfortable just kind of riding the wave. Not comfortable, that's not the right word. I've just been too overwhelmed, I think. So I've just been in this state of, oh, this is happening and it feels like my life is falling apart. It must be perimenopause.
Mm-hmm.
And I will do absolutely nothing about it and I will just complain about it. But now I'm being forced to research some of this stuff and really think about what actually is going on in my body and what I can do,
Yeah.
because there's a lot in my control that I can do to improve it. Not all of it.
I mean, to improve it, it doesn't get rid of it and it doesn't keep it from happening, but it definitely can improve. When you try to improve it, I think it helps your mental health too on a regular.
Well, especially when you're talking about things like brain fog. So I wasn't aware that it was, first of all, great news. It's not permanent. It
Yeah.
is, I know, woohoo! It is tied directly to estrogen, which I am learning serves a lot of different functions. I didn't know all of the things that estrogen did. So much more than just reproduction. And so I feel like as I'm looking into some of the stuff that I should, by the way, absolutely know about my own body as a 44-year-old female.
Like, we didn't know that these are the things that we should know because later on we're going to need to, figure out ways to help because the estrogen decreases so much. We didn't know. We knew, but we didn't know, I guess, if that makes sense. I mean, why would you think you would need to know that?
Well, no, like, why do I need to? I mean, there are people who really do deep dives into
Yeah.
what's going on. But for me, I've just kind of gone through life like, oh, that's weird. And if it bothers me too much, I'll go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just like, it'll go away eventually. But this shit doesn't go away. How long have you been dealing with menopausal, perimenopausal symptoms?
Oh, I probably started a little bit before I was 40. And it really just started with like, I could start to tell when I was ovulating. My ovary would pinch so bad, that I would have to like literally sit down sometimes to get some relief from the pinch. So when I explained that to my doctor, she said, yeah, so you're at the age where you're probably starting perimenopause. But that was really the end of the conversation, other than just so you know, your period's going to get worse. And I was like, oh, okay. And then probably not until like 41, 42 did other things start to happen. So it was just my ovaries that were in my cramping and stuff like that were annoying for a while. But, whatever. That's something I could live with. It only happened once a month. But these are the things that happen continuously. Every day I'm dealing with them.
There's so much that I have been sort of attributing to my own mental illness and or life stressors, because I think that's the tricky part, is that one of the things I was reading, for example, talked about so many of these brain fog type things actually
Mhm.
mimic ADHD. So a lot of women in our age range are like researching ADHD. I have
Mhm.
some friends that are going on stimulants because they and their doctors are convinced that it's ADHD.
I know that like ADHD in girls shows up different than boys. So I know a lot of girls are women now being diagnosed with ADHD because when they were kids, they weren't diagnosed because it didn't look the same.
That's true.
They only did research on boys because,
The amount of research that is done on just boys or just men for shit that impacts women is astounding to me. I'm like, have we gotten to 2025?
Don't know.
And we still, I think about that workshop that you and I went to where she talked about intermittent fasting,
Yeah.
and the research on that was just men. And I'm thinking, we are 50% of the population here.
I know. It's probably why, as a mother of a girl, I advocate so much to make sure that whatever she's feeling on the inside is what we take care of.
Yes. I've been talking to friends who are about our age, so mid 40s.
Yeah.
And many of them are experiencing similar things that we are, but their doctors are telling them that they're too young for perimenopause and things like that,
What?
which is wild to me. I had a friend who's 47 and
My
she was
age.
yes, and she was experiencing some of these symptoms and had been for probably about 2 years that she really was taking notice of. And she went in and her doctor drew like a panel or whatever and said, "Oh, you're not in perimenopause." But the thing is, that changes. Our hormones fluctuate daily. So why are we still being dismissed? And that's why understanding what's going on in our bodies is incredibly important, because we might have to advocate for ourselves. Now, I found a gynecologist who's incredible and
Yeah.
she specializes in menopausal health, but it wasn't that way before. I had an old white dude who, told me that I was too young for any of it. So that was frustrating as hell. And I felt like, oh, okay, I'll just keep dismissing my symptoms as me just being cranky and it's situational and I am bipolar.
Yeah.
But at the more research I do, the more I'm like, and brain fog is one of my worst symptoms. It annoys me more than the hot flashes.
It's annoying. I started taking Ginkgo for that reason. Sorry,
Okay.
my eyes are watering. Another symptom of
I mean,
on a constant, I'm like wiping so that's annoying.
No, well, it's annoying for you. It doesn't bother me at all because I'm always wiping something, which, you're not supposed to touch your face, but I can't help it because I have things coming out of every orifice sometimes.
So I take Ginkgo because it's supposed to help with like brain fog and like your brain function and stuff like that. Because I work at a job that you have to know what the next step is. And if I'm foggy and I don't remember the next step, then that slows the process of what we're doing.
And you are sort of known for how efficient and on top of things you are at work. No, I don't have that problem necessarily, except for when I'm subbing. Obviously, I need a lot more on my toes, but still not to the extent that you're talking about where someone's under anesthesia, need to work efficiently. I interrupt myself, which you've experienced constantly because I just am so foggy all the time.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes too, when you are foggy, you're trying to play catch up. So you feel like you have a million things that you want to get out. So you try to get them out quickly. And then sometimes you don't make sense because you're trying to get out what you're trying to, because you're like, in 5 seconds, I'm not going to remember. I'm going to forget what I'm trying to say. So I got to get it out quickly. And then sometimes it sounds like you're bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, and that's definitely what people in my life experience with me too. But it's something that I was actually going down the ADHD path, and I'm like, how have I never noticed that I had ADHD symptoms? And then I started piecing together, when did these things start happening? What is it sort of tied to? And I'm like, for me, I don't think that I do have ADHD. I think that this is all brain fog related, which according to the research, it really there are ways that we can improve it. You talked about ginkgo, and here we go again. Sleep and nutrition, incredibly
Yeah.
important in battling it. It keeps coming back to that. So I know that we're going to talk about sleep in our next solo episode, but it's critical and feels almost impossible to control.
Yeah, I was just talking to Jade this morning and I was like, I tossed and turned a lot last night. And you could do all these things to help make sleep better. My room is 66 degrees. I slept in shorts and a t-shirt, but I still tossed and turned. I take magnesium. There's nothing that's going to be like, okay, if you do this, you're going to get great sleep.
Right, right.
I think
So then
that's frustrating.
well, it is frustrating. And I think then it becomes like we were talking about last week, where with relationships, if you're kind of struggling in your relationships, there's a lot that you can do proactively, but you're still going to be reactive sometimes. So then, okay, well, what do you do when perimenopause symptoms do impact your sleep or do impact brain fog? How can you say, okay, here's a tool that I can use knowing that this is something that's going to happen that isn't going to fix it, but will make it a little bit easier to manage.
Yeah.
So I think that's where maybe some strategies that people with ADHD use could be helpful in this stage of our lives. So the science behind it is really fascinating. And I think that maybe that's just because I'm a total dork, but so wait,
No.
here's what's actually happening, okay? The role
Okay.
of estrogen specifically in the brain fog. So, as we talked about, estrogen isn't just responsible for reproduction. It's kind of like a powerhouse. So,
Yeah.
it regulates neurotransmitters, and basically what that means is learning and memory. Our estrogen levels impact our ability to learn, to retain, to remember things, to recall things from our short-term memory. Estrogen has a hand in all of that. It boosts blood flow to the brain. Okay?
Mm.
That kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a serious dip in estrogen, which is I've been experiencing a lot of symptoms that are dips in estrogen, it protects the brain against aging. So all of those cognitive things that are going on, which is why they tell us to be serious about doing things that keeps our brain stimulated. Our estrogen levels play a huge role in slowing down those sort of cognitive
Okay.
aging processes too. Also, like we said, sleep and stress for sure, but inflammation, which a lot of inflammation is controlled by diet. And inflammation isn't something that I would have necessarily tied to
Mm-hmm.
any of this. I don't
Yeah.
think diet came into my brain at all when I was thinking of like, how can we combat this?
I think exercise too is supposed to be something that helps combat brain fog because it raises your endorphins and things. And so I think it helps like give you that blood flow to your brain.
Which apparently is something that we need, whatever. I'm really glad that we're chatting about this with each other, but I do wonder, why isn't this stuff more readily available? You remember those packets that you got at the OBGYN when you were pregnant? No one, not a single soul has handed me a packet on aging and perimenopause. Not one human being.
I know. It's kind of crazy, right? We're just floating around trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
And yes, my doctor explained things to me, but not in the details of what you do. If you're doing your own research, you're going to find, which not everybody has fucking time for that.
So that you mentioned exercise too. God, I have to get serious about that, Jen. Because exercise helps manage stress,
Yeah.
which when you're stressed, that contributes to brain fog as well.
It's all interconnected, but it makes it so hard to, it just, yeah. But then your levels of like energy are low.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
then it's like, oh, I'm so tired. You're not getting good sleep. Your energies are low. You have the brain fog stuff. You're exhausted for no reason in particular that you can think of. You
Right.
still have a partner. You still have children. Not everybody, obviously, but for me, that I still have all of those things and work. And then you have work, friendships, and you have to find the balance, and it's hard to do that.
Yeah, I feel like I start my day already behind because I wake up sometimes, a lot of times, feeling weighed down by everything that's in my brain before my feet even touch the floor. I have some daily affirmations that I put up on my wall that I've been saying to myself every morning.
Hmm.
Because I feel like if I don't force myself to focus on gratitude and to be more aware of what's going on in my body without feeling like shit about it, I have to really make effort because it
Mm,
is very easy for me to get in my head and be like, this sucks. I feel like garbage all the time. Do I really have to do this for another 5 years? And that's
yeah. I have a cycle of that though. So like I don't feel like I'm on that cycle on a regular basis, but I feel like when I get closer to my period, that is when I have a harder time mentally because I feel like I'm even more exhausted and I'm starving all the time. You know, those types of things.
So, some practical tips because we don't have to live here. You mentioned ginkgo. You take that daily.
I take it
Is it
daily.
is it just a gummy or like
No,
a
it's just
supplement?
in the pill form, gel pill form. I also take an anti-inflammatory, and I'm having brain fog right now. I'm trying to remember what it is.
Perfect. We love illustrations here. So,
God, I cannot believe this. I could literally run upstairs and go look at it, but oh my God. It's also a spice. What's my problem right now?
turmeric?
Yes, thank
Is
you.
it? Shut up.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay. So I feel very accomplished right now. Basically, I can end my day feeling like I achieved something today because
yeah.
I came up with that.
You ended my suffering right now.
Okay. Turmeric. It was the spice when you said spice. Okay. So ginkgo and turmeric.
Yeah, I take that. Well, I take a lot of supplements every day, but those are the two, the anti-inflammatory for all the reasons and the
Yeah.
ginkgo for the brain.
And again, as a reminder, we are not medical experts,
No.
and everything that we're trying is trial and error, of course. Definitely should reach out to your doctor if you're thinking about trying supplements. And then, again, we'll get more into sleep, but doing everything that you can to set yourself up for success when you're
Yep.
going to bed. Again, that's very difficult and not a guaranteed, but at least if you've some good sleep hygiene, that's really important. Sleep hygiene is a very fascinating topic to me as well because as someone with bipolar disorder, I've been dealing with insomnia my whole life in waves, and that is miserable. But, in perimenopause, it's kicked it up a notch
Yeah.
because I haven't actually had a good night's sleep in over a week at this point.
I go through like spurts where I'll have like 3 or 4 nights where it's good and then I have like 3 or 4 nights where it's not good and I feel like it takes its toll.
Yeah. Another tip, in addition to sleep and supplements, is this is going to be news to you, Jen Deppen, water. You should be well hydrated. I know you're really bad about water. Just kidding, it's me.
Yeah.
So the backstory on that is Jen has been telling me to drink water our entire friendship, and I'm like, ew, no, water's stupid. And that's not really what I said, but I just never really took that tip seriously. And then one day I decide I'm going to take this tip seriously years later because it takes me 3 to 5 business years to actually implement a suggestion. Thank you. You and my husband, probably my mother too. But anyway, all of a sudden my life starts changing just from drinking water. So if you're a self-sabotager, we're going to be besties. If you say this isn't working in my life, I'm going to immediately find a solution and implement it, you're a Gen Deppen. So yes, prioritizing sleep and hydration, very
Yeah.
important. Eating for brain health.
Yeah. Well, when you say I'm the person who finds something wrong and then implements it, not so great with the diet
So what's your
things.
downfall when it comes to diet?
I just want a snack. I don't love meals. I just pick throughout the day, then actually sit down and have a meal, but the picking ends up being whatever's easiest to grab and go.
Nutrition in general is hard. It takes a lot of work. Groceries right now, and have been exorbitant. It's so expensive. And it takes a lot of mental energy. And when we're struggling already, sometimes
Yeah.
we do want the comfort food. But you're right. A lot of it makes me feel like garbage. So just not having that stuff in the house sometimes is helpful because then I'm too lazy to go get it. I have also been doing yoga again. I just restarted yoga. I have a little home practice set up for now, but there is a really cute yoga studio in our town that I would like to try out. I can't do anything super rigorous at this point, but just getting started with some movement that will help sort of reduce the stress
Mhm.
and cortisol levels in my body. I think that's it. So supplements, hydration, sleep,
Food,
exercise, food, nutrition for
nutrition.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned magnesium. I know that there are magnesium pills, and some people spray magnesium on their body because it absorbs through the skin. What's your experience with it?
My problem is I take my supplements in the morning, and magnesium and I think calcium, they fight each other for absorption if you take them at the same time. And also another thing in our age is bone density. So I take the calcium instead of the magnesium. I have a magnesium spray that I spray on my feet, sometimes on my stomach. I try to remember to do that before I go to bed, but sometimes I'm so exhausted by 9 o'clock that I
Yeah.
forget. So I do have the spray. I also have the magnesium pills on the side of my bed so that I could take it right before I go to bed. Also terrible at trying to remember to take the pills. So, but that's where
Yeah.
I'm at with that.
I know. And again, those sort of devices or strategies that people with ADHD use might be helpful in remembering some of those things too. I know a bunch from an education perspective, but not as many from a life perspective. At this point, we're just gathering
Yeah.
tools to get through this.
Any tool we could possibly use is a good idea.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, and
mean,
if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Move on to the next tool.
that's exactly right. Try it, but give it a shot. So it's like water. I can't just drink the appropriate amount of water for one day and think that I'm instantly going to be hydrated after decades of being dehydrated. So it takes time and consistency when you're behind on sleep, catching up
Yes.
on sleep is a whole freaking process.
Mm-hmm. Always a process. I want to nap multiple times a day sometimes. I
Me
mean, I
too.
can't, but I want to.
I was in bed at literally, I sent you that selfie, 6:30 p.m. It was actually just before 6:30. I was fully in my pajamas, in bed. Don't talk to me. I'm a
Yeah.
miserable beast.
Yep.
Hmm.
I'm usually in bed by 9 every night. And like deliriously falling asleep.
Yeah.
As if
Yeah.
I was up all night the night before partying. No, not at all. Not
You
even
were just
close.
you were just existing.
Just living my life.
You you just were just working and taking care of your family and
Yes.
cooking dinner probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doing laundry is so exhausting now that by 9 o'clock, I can barely keep my eyes open. And then I'm laying there trying to tell myself, don't be falling asleep at nine
Don't fall
o'clock.
asleep. Don't
I'm
fall
like, what are
asleep.
you doing, you loser? And then next thing I know, Elle's coming in at 10 to say goodnight. And I'm like, damn it, I fell asleep again.
That's okay. I actually am a proponent of listening to our bodies, and I need to listen to my body and not feel so damn guilty about taking care of myself.
I think it was a little after 9 last night. Jason and I were watching Severance and it was over. And he was like, I looked at the clock and he was like, oh, I kept you up past your
You're like, thanks.
I was like, I think I'll survive. Also, I can't wait to get to bed.
I fell asleep at my desk subbing yesterday, and a student woke me up when she came into the room for third block. I was up like this with my angry sleep face on. I don't know. She didn't make a comment
Did
about
she
because my
know
back
you were
was,
sleeping or did you just hear her?
I mean, if she was looking at me at all, I did one of the sitting up with a start. So she absolutely, at that point, knew that I was sleeping, but I wasn't drooling or anything. And most high schoolers aren't trying to look at their teacher. So it's probable that she didn't even notice and she didn't say anything. So that was good. Why am I falling asleep? I had a Celsius.
They do say that caffeine contributes to brain fog too.
Oh, shit.
Here's the thing. I just want all of everybody to know. You can't no more being lazy. Get your ass up and move.
So what you're telling me is that I have to get off the couch. I have to take all of these gross horse pill supplements. You know how good I am at, do they have this in liquid form? That's what I want to know. So I have to take all these horse pill supplements. I have to exercise
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because also we're losing muscle mass and bone density by the friggin' minute. I am grumpy just by existing. My family's afraid of me, actually. We have to go to bed early. We're not fun anymore. Listen, there are some benefits to being in the messy middle that we are currently in. However, it's okay to be a little bit grumpy, especially in the circle of trust right now, in the
Yeah.
perimenopausal circle of trust, to
Just don't
really
live
own the
there.
fact that
I know.
today it sucks.
Yeah, but we just can't live there. So let's
Yeah.
celebrate that we're figuring it out.
And that's right. And that we're able to laugh our way through it.
Yeah.
Not that you
And we're
can
not in
all
the,
of the time.
yeah, we're not in it alone.
All of this is temporary. And
Yeah.
how fortunate that we have lived long enough to go through this change of life. And I'm told from women who are on the other side of it that life is even cooler. So
Hey.
you just keep embracing each moment and learn from it and do what you can when you can. And
Yeah.
and that's it. We're going through a transition. Our body
Yeah.
is going through a transition. And I think, at least in our society, we've been programmed to go, 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 go. And this shit slows you down.
Yeah, it changes
A lot.
everything. It changes absolutely everything.
It does change everything. I'm actually curious to see who else has been dealing with brain fog and what are some ways that they combat
Yeah.
it. So if you're experiencing brain fog, connect with us on social media, send us a message, comment. We're going to post some things about this episode. But honestly, I'm very curious as to how other women are getting through this, because I don't know a ton of people that I'm talking to in my personal life other than you and a couple other friends. So I'm just very curious to kind of get a collective of what other women are going through.
Yeah, same. I would love to know.
Yeah. So find us it's brain.fog.banter on TikTok. And on Instagram, it's just Brain Fog Banter. But yeah, let us know. Are you experiencing brain fog? Are you finding it as frustrating as we are? What do you do about it? Any funny stories to share? We are all about a funny story. So
Yeah.
please tell us.
Thanks for hanging out with us in the fog today.
If you had a laugh, learned something new, or just felt a little more seen,
Go ahead and follow the show. You can also leave us a review, share this episode with a friend, or slide into our DMs with your own midlife mayhem.
We're here for it. All of it.
Catch you next time on Brain Fog Banter.